back now to the New York City courthouse, where the historic criminal trial of former President Trump is entering a new phase of jury selection. So far, no jurors have been seated, but dozens have been excused over conflicts with their schedules or their inability to judge the case fairly. Want to bring in investigative reporter Olivia Rubin, who is outside the court with a prospective juror who was just excused from the case. Hi there, Olivia.
Hey, Stephanie, I'm standing here with Kara McGee, who is, as you said, a prospective juror who was just excused. She had some scheduling conflicts with her job working in cybersecurity, but she went into the room with former President Donald Trump. She stood up, she answered the 42-question questionnaire, and we're hearing a little bit about what it is like in that room. So, Kara, I want to ask you right off the top, what was it like that very first moment you walked inside of the courtroom and saw former President Donald Trump? Tell us about that.
Sure. So I wasn't positive that this was the case I was on until I went in the courtroom and saw him. And my first thought was, oh, wow, this is interesting, because I learned that this was the case.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's two very conflicting feelings at the same time, where on the one hand, it's this enormous feeling of you're part of history. And on the other hand, it's this huge public figure who you've seen in the media for so long, and you see him in person, and he's just some guy.
Yeah. Did you want to get on the case?
I did. I thought it would be really interesting. Yeah.
And can you tell us about when you answered the questionnaire? It's just you. It's all on you. You know, have you read his books? Did you watch his shows? Do you follow him on social media? Were you looking at him? Was he looking at you? How did you feel being right there with him?
So when I personally was answering the questionnaire, I was looking down, trying to make sure I was seeing the questions correctly. I did look at him right before I looked down to start reading it. And from watching him watch the other jurors, he seemed to be paying pretty close attention to them. The legal teams definitely were very invested in what everyone was saying as well.
And what are your sort of personal feelings on Donald Trump? Do you like him? Do you dislike him? And would you have been able to set that aside if you had been picked?
So personally, I do not like him at all. I don't approve of a lot of what he has done as president and a lot of what he has said for many reasons. But I think that the right to a fair trial in this country is incredibly important, especially in this day and age when, you know, none of us trust each other. It's such a fraught climate all the time. And I think that in order to do my civic duty, yes, I would be able to put aside my personal feelings about him and who he is as a person and what he has done and said, and judge the facts of this specific case and what can be proved and what can't.
And were you able to get a sense about the other jurors? You know, 96 were brought in yesterday. The judge said there's over 200 waiting. The sentiment from those jurors, were they, you know, pro-Donald Trump? Were they against Donald Trump? Were they completely neutral? What is the sense of the jury pool in there right now?
So I think you can't be an American and come into this without a prior opinion. It's just not possible. But there seem to be kind of two schools of thought. One where people were very honest that they wouldn't be able to put their prior opinions aside and raise their hand and said, I don't think I would be able to be impartial, and were excused.
Right.
And one where people definitely were coming from a background of it, either that they did or didn't like him. There were some people who definitely seemed more conservative leaning, more pro-Trump.
So both sides?
Both sides, yeah, but from both sides, a willingness to either say, I would be too influenced, I can't do this, or I am willing to put this aside and focus on the facts.
And I would say my last question for you, Kara, you know, you were just in there, a potential juror deciding a very historic case. Donald Trump has said that he doesn't think that he can get a fair jury in New York. What would you say to him in response to that statement, having maybe been a juror?
I was surprised at how fair it actually did seem. I was worried that there would be people who would try to lie their way onto the jury to get one or the other outcome, and I think there's risk of that from anyone. I mean, I could see the motivation for it, but it really seemed like everyone there was taking it very seriously and was kind of reminded of our responsibility to uphold the sanctity of a free trial, or a fair trial, not for Donald Trump himself, but for this institution going forward.
Great. Kara, thank you so much. Stephanie, heard it there, wanted to get on, but wasn't ultimately chosen. And I think the takeaway really does not like Donald Trump, but believes in the idea that every single person deserves a fair trial. Stephanie.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you to Kara McGee for sharing your perspective with us. Kara McGee there, a prospective juror who was dismissed today, but sharing the sentiments that many other jurors may also feel that they could have been a part of history. This is a historic trial. But again, thank you, Olivia and Kara. We, of course, will be following this historic trial all day right here on ABC News Live.